Hello everyone, and welcome to our virtual art classroom. I'm really excited to be here today. My name is Ms. Ehren, and I'm really excited to be working with Louisville Visual Art to bring you all a fun and very creative activity that you can do right here at your kitchen table, such as I am doing right now. The activity that we're going to be doing today is called a tunnel book, which is not actually a book at all, but it is a three-dimensional design, sort of like a collage, that has, I think, limitless possibilities as far as the concept and the imagery that you can use. And we are going to dive into making this wonderful 3D kind of pop-up construction with a tunnel book. So right now I have in front of me the example that I made. And I have chosen for this example to do kind of a landscape, but this one is, I'm calling it the bug's eye view, right? So what we're seeing here is my little friend, the ant, in the grass, right? So before we dive into talking about all the materials and the construction, I want to just kind of do a little step-by-step of what the construction looks like and what the steps will be. So if we can zoom in here a little bit to show that what we've got going on is basically three different layers, right? Three different layers of paper, and they are connected using an accordion fold, right? So it's a back and forth fold that we will explain in further detail in a little bit. And so let's move into supplies for a moment. So this is a great project that you can do at home with just the supplies that you have on hand, because it's very, very simple. So all that you will need is paper of some kind. It can be computer paper or printer paper. It could be construction paper. You could use cereal boxes, any kind of recycled material, you know, thin cardboard would work as well. So we'll start with any kind of paper, whatever you have on hand. We also will need a glue stick. We will need a pair of scissors, and then any kind of drawing and coloring materials that you prefer. So I am choosing today to use colored pencils, but there are many other things that will work.
You're welcome.
Thank you to my sweet nephew for offering the use of his art supplies. He is also an artist, and he also is a cameraman today. So I've chosen to use colored pencils, but you can also use crayons. You could just use regular graphite or regular pencil. You can use markers, really anything you have on hand that makes you feel the most creative. The paper that I am choosing to use today, we just happen to have on hand some colored printer paper. So this is not heavyweight construction paper. It's just regular printer paper, but it just happens to be colored. So because we have that, I obviously on a gloomy day like today wanted to choose to bring some color into our project here. So what we want to do is start out with 3 pieces of paper, and hopefully they'll be all the same size, but they don't even necessarily have to be the same size. You will have three different sheets. So because I have this beautiful, you know, all these multicolored papers, I've chosen 3 different colors. And the tunnel book that I'm going to make for you all right now, rather than doing another bug's eye view like my original example, for this one I've chosen to do kind of an under the sea theme, right? So I'll do an underwater theme for this one. But there are a million other themes that you could choose. I personally like to do kind of landscape oriented things when I'm doing this particular project, because I find that they're kind of most conducive to the project. But really, the sky's the limit as far as your creativity, whatever you want to do, you know, to bring in your own creativity into this project. So I'm choosing to do an underwater scene. Some other examples might be a jungle scene or an outer space scene, or, you know, really, like I said, anything that you can dream of will work for this project. So it really is tons of fun. So let's begin. So as you can see from my example, we're working with roughly a half sheet of whatever paper it is that you're using. Okay, so I'm going to take my my first sheet, and I am going to, so this is an 8.5 by 11, right? And what I want to do is I want to make this into 2 equal size sheets. So the best way to do that without having to mess with a ruler or anything like that is just to take it and fold it edge to edge and corner to corner so it matches up nicely, and then just crease it down with your thumbs, right? So I have folding it here, like I like to say, hamburger style, right? So it's half hamburger style as opposed to hot dog style. So we're gonna take that so that we've got a half a sheet. Now I'm going to go ahead and cut this in half. And what I'm making right now is 2 different components of the tunnel book. One of which will be the front framing portion, and the other is going to be the background, right? So one thing that I should maybe point out a little bit more clearly with the example, and this is your, art terminology lesson for the day. What we're talking about here is foreground, middle ground, and background, right? So when we talk about foreground, we are talking about the portion of something that is closest to us, right? So this, where I have the grass here in front of my little ant, this is our foreground. Next, in the middle section, we have what we call the middle ground, right? So that's anything that's at a mid distance, right? Not the closest thing to you, but it's also not the furthest thing away. And then finally, we have our background, right? So that will be the part of your scene that is behind everything else and is the furthest thing away from you. So the 2 pieces that I have now, just cut in half from one sheet. One of these will become the frame for the front of my tunnel book, and the other will become the background. So let's move into the frame. I think there's only 2 parts of this project that are a little bit tricky, this being one of them, right? So what we want to do is to basically make a window. I want to make a window that has a little bit of a border all the way around the edge, right? And so again, I don't even have a ruler with me today, so I'm not going to be concerned about measuring anything. I am just going to maybe kind of eyeball it and think, I'd like to make a border that's maybe about 3/4 of an inch, which for some of you, depending how old you are and how big your fingers are, it could be 1 finger, it could be 2 fingers. For me, it's probably about a thumb width, right? So what I'm going to do in order to cut that border out, and again, I'm not even going to worry about drawing it, but if you feel more comfortable taking a pencil and drawing a rectangle inside your first sheet there, I'm just going to really, really roughly sketch out a rectangle. I'm kind of trying to make sure that the border is fairly even all the way around, but this is a pretty forgiving project and doesn't necessarily need to be perfect.
If you have a ruler though, that would be preferable. Yeah.
Okay, so I've got a little rectangle here, a rectangle within a rectangle. And what I want to do is just cut this little window out, right? So the easiest way to do that is to just gently fold the paper, again, kind of hamburger style, right? As opposed to hot dog style, although I guess you could do it that way too. I'm going to fold it like this. I'm going to look for the line of my rectangle here. And I'm just going to take my scissors and just cut right in there, just like that. So that will give me a little slit right here. And then using that slit, once that slit is cut, I will be able to just slide my scissors right in there so that I can just really easily cut all the way around the border. So I'm making a little window frame. And again, it doesn't really matter if it's super even all the way around. In fact, you could get really creative with this border if you wanted to do curvy cuts or zigzags, or any other shape would work, whatever works best with your concept and your design. So I've cut out the interior rectangle, and now I have my little window frame. Yay. All right, so I'm gonna set that piece aside because we no longer need it. All right, so now part 1 is done. So let's move on to the middle ground. So as I said, I have decided for this particular tunnel book that I would like to make an underwater scene. So I have these 3 beautiful blue sheets of paper. I'm going to take this kind of mid-range blue, and just like I did with the first one, I'm going to take this and I'm going to cut it evenly in half. So we'll take it and we will fold it. And again, make sure it's corner to corner so you end up with a nice even half sheet of paper. I crease it with my fingers. So it opens like a book, just like that. And then I will take my scissors, go ahead and cut halfway. We've got dogs barking over here. Everybody's happy. It's turning into a beautiful afternoon. All right. So now, once again, I have 2 even half sheets of paper, right? And again, this will be the portion of my tunnel book that is the middle ground, right? So what I'm going to do, because I'm making an ocean scene, is I am going to transform this half sheet of paper into a series of waves, right? And just to be, making sure that it looks just the way I want it to, I'm going to go ahead and draw those in, but they're going to be kind of random and make it kind of a blustery sea, maybe. Kind of varying the height and the width of my little waves. So I just kind of have a series of curved, kind of zigzag shapes, right? To mimic the ocean, right? So without further ado, I'm going to cut this part out. And when I cut it, the most important thing with the construction of the tunnel book is that you want to make sure that the bottom portion of your middle ground, and also actually of your foreground, the bottom needs to stay this exact width, right? So you can cut all you want from this top portion, whatever shapes you're working with, any of that. You just want to make sure that the bottom stays this exact same width, and you will learn why later. So I'm gonna go ahead and cut this out. Bear with me. So, and meanwhile, a little chit chat. I hope everyone is having a wonderful time at home and getting all of your schoolwork done and enjoying your distance learning and all that good stuff. But hoping that you're also making time to be creative and also getting outside a little bit as much as you can. I had a great visit to the park myself yesterday. I was able to enjoy a little bit of sunshine. So hope you are all able to do the same. All right, so my waves are working here. It's exciting. And almost done. All right, here we go. So with my waves for my middle ground, you may have noticed that the way that I drew them onto the paper, I went about halfway up of my half sheet of paper, right? So when I drew those on, I went about yay high, right? And that is the place where you want to be for whatever is happening in your middle ground. So right now I've got my waves happening right here. Pretty exciting. Got bonus waves for my second version. I'm gonna set those aside so that I can do another one later because it's so much fun. So here we go. I've got my middle ground. So the pieces we've got going on so far, we've got our front border piece, our little window, and then we've got our middle ground right here. So I'm gonna jump back a little bit and we're gonna tackle the foreground. So I'm gonna take my third piece of paper, and again, you can be using any kind of paper that works for you. Like I said, I just happen to have colored paper here, but if you're using just traditional white printer paper, you can go absolutely nuts coloring your paper any way you please. So I'm gonna show my example again one more time. This one was done, I actually used a light green paper, but as you can see, I actually did a lot of coloring on this one with colored pencil. So, you know, however you want to design it and work on it, use whatever you've got. And again, it's only your imagination that limits you. So go nuts with this, you know, bring more color into the world. So take my other piece of paper here, I guess my third now piece of paper. And once again, I'm gonna fold it in half, because I wanna cut that evenly in half. And here we go, paper number 3. Woo. Okay, so another half sheet of paper. This is what I'm going to use for my foreground, which, because we're doing an ocean scene here, my foreground, just like my middle ground, my foreground is also going to be waves. So I'm going to draw my waves on here, but if you recall, and I said you want to go about halfway up the page on your middle ground, when you do your foreground, you want to make that part a little bit shorter. So I'm probably only going to go about a quarter up the page or so, right? So rather than making my waves nice and tall on this one, I'm going to make them a little shorter. Here's some teeny waves. And you know, I'm going to make them actually go in the opposite direction of the first ones that I did. On the high seas, you know, things get crazy.
Yeah.
You can go in any direction. All right, so here we have our second set of waves. Ooh, yeah. All right, and I'm just gonna go to town here real quick, cut these out. So while you're thinking about your foreground, background, and middle ground, you also want to be thinking about who lives in the scene that you're creating, right? If you're making an outer space scene, who's out there? Are we looking at astronauts? Is it Martians? Is it, you know, who knows what else? What else is living in outer space? If it is a jungle scene, are we up in the tops of the trees? Is it are we in the rainforest? You know, what exactly is your scene? And who lives there? Right? So be thinking a little bit about the characters that you want to create and who is going to inhabit the space that you are making. So you'll see here in a moment that I have made a couple of characters that are going to inhabit my little underwater world here, and those I made on separate sheets of paper. We can go into that in a moment, as soon as I finish delicately cutting out these gorgeous waves. If you don't mind my saying, I think they're cute. There we go. All right.
They're very adorable waves.
They are very cute. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Here we go. All right, so we've got wave set number 2 happening here. Woo! All right, so these are a little more curly Q than the previous. These kind of look like shark teeth, I guess.
Yeah, they kind of do.
But, so I've got two sets of waves here. As you can see, both of my sheets of paper are the exact same width, right? So they line up nice and even. And coincidentally, they are also the exact same length as my little window frame here, okay? So, starting to look like a little bit of an ocean.
It looks really good.
Yeah, okay. So, let's see, I'm gonna do just one little kind of bit of improvising here. I think I'm gonna go ahead and make one more set of waves. So, good thing I have one of my discarded half sheets, right? So essentially with this project, you're only ever gonna need 1/2 of each sheet of paper that you're using. So if you're using all white paper, you can just cut that one in half and use both of those halves. But since I'm using multiple colors, I'm gonna revisit a discarded piece to make one more set of waves, just for fun. So let's see, I'm gonna make these go in
the same way as the other
same
ones?
direction, but I'm gonna go up a little higher when I draw them on here. So they're gonna sit a little bit taller. All right, so next set of waves.
Yep.
Incoming. Cowabunga. Or whatever it is they say. What do they say?
I don't know.
Hang loose?
Sure.
Cool.
I don't know.
Side commentary, once again, is provided by my sweet nephew, Jacob, who is 16 and an artist, and is awesome.
Aww. No. Thank you, though. Appreciate it. By the way, I hope you guys are really enjoying this class. Come back this summer for camps for LVA.
Yes.
Please. I'm going to be volunteering there. It's going to be so much fun.
It is.
We're going to have so much fun.
Yeah, summer camps with LVA are some of the best times ever.
They really are. It's so much fun.
Yeah. Great time.
Even for volunteers, I'm going to be volunteering. It's going to be so much fun. I promise. It's going to be so much fun.
Yeah, I'm gonna do it. All right, so.
Oh, look. One of those waves kind of looks like a little bit of like the heart, doesn't it?
Full of love, yes, a little bit. Okay, so set number 3 of our waves, right? So we're gonna kind of stack them up and see how they, excuse me, see how they look one at a time. All right, so we got 1, 2, 3. Ooh, looks like a very tumultuous ocean.
It looks
doesn't it?
Great.
How exciting.
Yes.
Okay, so one more time. Again, all of these are matching up edge to edge, and will also match up with our frame. Alrighty, so the next step, I am going to go back to my darker blue, kind of royal blue sheet of paper, right? Which I've decided that this will be my background. And I like to match it with the foreground because I feel like it makes a more finished looking piece. So the first thing that we are going to do at this point, I'm gonna go ahead and one of these, my back layer, my biggest layer of waves, I'm going to glue directly onto my background sheet of paper, right? So I'm going to use my glue stick. If you don't have a glue stick and you just have regular white glue, that is also absolutely fine. But just of course, keep in mind that it'll take a little longer to dry. And so you want to put a really, really thin layer of white glue if you're using liquid white glue from a bottle.
That's what I was going to say. Make sure it's not like a thick coat that's going to mess up the paper.
Correct. Nice thin coat of white glue if you're using it. But with a glue stick, nice and, I'm gonna put a liberal coating of glue stick on there. And you'll notice also, and your moms and dads and parents and family and guardians and whomever might also notice that I have covered my workspace, right? So I've got a little wax paper down here just to make sure that I keep the furniture clean, right? Because we'll be cleaning up enough of a mess when we finish this project. We don't need to have glue on the table. So
I've gotten yelled at enough by my parents saying to keep the furniture clean.
okay. Let's see. All right, so now I am going to go ahead and stick that on there, easy peasy. My first set of waves right here. Awesome, awesome. All right, so now that that is on there, I'm going to introduce you to my little characters that I have created. And we're not going to add them into the scene just yet, but I just want to introduce them.
They're so cute.
So, because we're doing it in a little underwater situation here, I have created a little crab, super happy little guy, and his little buddy starfish over here. Awesome. So these guys will enter the picture shortly. Literally will enter the picture in a little bit. All right, so we are about to embark on the kind of one of the trickier parts of this project, right? So we had our first tricky part, which was cutting the frame, but that was pretty painless. So hopefully you succeeded with that portion.
Guaranteed.
The next tricky part is creating the accordion fold that will join all of these pieces together. All right, so I'll kind of give you a couple different views of that so you can see what we're looking at and kind of how the construction works. So I'm going to, again, revisit my stacks of discarded papers. I still have one full half sheet left of the paper that I started with. And so I'm going to use this to create my accordion folds. So what I need is 2 equal-sized portions of this paper. So just like we did with the full sheet of paper, I'm going to take this and fold it in half. And again, make sure it's nice and corner to corner, so it's really nice and even. Fold it in half, crease it with my fingers. All right, so we've got another little book shape like this. I'm gonna cut this one in half as well. So I have 2 rectangles, right? So as we look at this, I'm gonna show you just to compare. We'll see that these edges, the height of both of these papers match up, right? So we wanna make sure that we're not looking at it like this, right? We wanna make sure that the long edge is going up and down. So it's kind of like a portrait versus a landscape in terms of its orientation, right? So it's a vertical orientation rather than a horizontal orientation, okay? So, again, now here comes a little bit of a tricky part. I'm going to introduce another little sample really fast before I start showing you the folding technique on this part. I'm gonna show you just some extra folded pieces that I made earlier so that we can see what we want to end up with, right? So what we want in the end is an accordion, right? Also sort of, like a fan type of folding technique. And what we want to end up with is a total of 5 different sections. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So 5 folded sections. And that means you want to make a total of 2 creases, right? Just 2 creases. And again, this does not have to be super, super precise, but it's important that you end up with 5 sections. If they're not 100% equal to each other in terms of their width, that is totally fine too. You can have a little variation and it's not a big deal. So what I'm going to do, again, making sure that I am looking at this in a vertical orientation, I am going to fold just about, let's see, this is about the width of my finger. So my first fold here is just about 1 finger's width, okay? And you'll see that I'm laying it down and I'm folding it away from myself, okay? Then the next fold, I actually like to pick it up and flip it over, and I'm gonna fold it back towards myself. About the same width, but again, if it's not exactly even, that is totally fine. So now I've got 2 little creases, right? So I'm gonna keep folding until I get to the end of the paper where I'll end up with 5 sections in this fold. I'm gonna fold it away from myself, pick it up and flip it over and fold it back towards myself once again. So just a couple of folds, easy peasy. So you can see here that I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 different folds. So I'm gonna set that one aside because I've got to do that to the second piece, right? So if you remember, I cut 1 half sheet into 2 smaller sheets. So we've got to fold both of those, right? Because that is what will make the accordion sides of your tonal book. So once again, I'll fold it away from myself, about 1 of my finger lengths wide, or finger widths. Fold it back towards myself, flip it, fold it away, flip it 1 more time, and fold it towards myself. So now I have, once again, another accordion fold with 5 different sections, okay, 5 sections. So these will be the sides of our accordion book. Super exciting. So my first step at this point, now that I have my accordions to attach the sides, I'm going to take my background and I'm going to take one of my accordion folds and I am going to kind of nestle the edge of the paper into one of the creases of the accordion. All right, can you see that okay?
Mm-hmm. You can. Let me zoom in just a little bit, sorry.
Okay. So I'm going to nestle that in there. Right, so it fits perfectly. And so now that I know that it fits, I am going to take my glue stick and I'm going to apply some glue to the very first flap on that accordion piece. All right, so again, a nice healthy layer of glue on there. And I'll just take my background piece and I will nestle that right in so it goes right into the fold of the accordion. I'm gonna smooth that down, kind of squish it a little bit, so that I now have my accordion piece attached to the side of my background. Right, so now I will just go ahead and do the same thing on the other side. Right, so making sure that the folds are going in the same, or actually they kind of go in the opposite direction, right? So I want to make sure that I have a flap tucked around the back of my background, and I am going to then, on the other side, apply the glue to that flap, and then I will take that and I will, again, tuck my background page right into that fold, just like that. And again, smooth it out with my fingers so we're sure that it sticks really well. And then here we are with our backgrounds and our accordion portion of the tone book. So now comes the fun part. Is figuring out where do I want to put my little guys. So I'm going to turn this around so it's facing me so I can really figure out exactly where my little crab friend should live. And I think he's just going to hang out really, you know, kind of hang out there in the background, right? And he's pretty big for this scene, but he could be a smaller crab. Also, he could have a little crab friend. But he's a big jumbo guy today, and he's having a great time. He's on spring break or something.
Oh, that's
super excited.
Fun. Yeah.
Yeah.
Can't wait for my spring break.
So, I'm gonna go ahead and glue him down. Here we go. And again, if you're using white glue, be kind of stingy with it, especially if you're using just regular computer paper. It doesn't need a lot of glue to stick down, but it does require you're holding it for a little longer. So if you're using white glue, this process might take just a little while longer. All right, so hello, crab friend. Here we go. So here he is, hanging out on the high seas, our little crab friend. Awesome, awesome. All right, so we're gonna jump from the background portion. We're gonna leap ahead here for a second, and leap forward in space to our foreground. So I'm going to pick up my frame, right? If you remember, this is the very front piece of the tunnel book. And I'm going to take my foreground piece, which for me is my tiniest set of waves, right? So it's these light blue ones right here in front. And I am going to attach these waves directly to my frame piece. So when I do that, I want to attach it just behind the frame, right? So rather than sticking it in front like this, I would like to have mine kind of tucked behind it, right? So that makes a nice clean edge that really kind of creates a nice crisp border around your scene that you're creating. So I'm gonna go ahead and glue my foreground waves to the back side of my front frame. So here goes that. Stick that on there. And so here we go. So now we've got our foreground waves, right? So hopefully you can kind of see how this is all coming together. It's pretty exciting, I think. So just to kind of mock it up for you here for a second, this is where we are so far. We've got our foreground, and our background and our crab friend hanging out, right? Okay, so now for the middle grounds. And this is the kind of trickier portion of the project, in that the placement of your middle ground will kind of determine what the depth of your tunnel book really looks like, right? So what I don't want to do is attach my second waves directly connected to my first one, right? So what we want to do is actually attach them a little further back, right? Because if you remember, this is the middle ground. So quick vocabulary recap here. We have the foreground right here with our front waves. We have the middle ground right here. And then we have the background where our little crab dude is hanging out. So what we're wanting to do here is to attach our middle ground into the folds of the accordion pieces, right? So I have here, basically we're looking at 2 triangles, right? So what I want to do is I'm going to attach my middle ground into the valley of those 2 triangles, right? So if we imagine these as 2 little mountains, that fold in between will be the valley, and that's where your middle ground is going to live. So what I'm gonna do, and this one does not require a lot of glue, because all you need to do is glue on the very edges of this one, because you only need enough to attach it to this small fold of paper. So I'll just take my glue and just put, again, about a finger's width of glue on either side. And I've got my glue on there, easy peasy. Now, one other thing that's important, before I glue this on, I want to make sure that my bottom edges all line up. So I want to, really make sure. We already know, because we cut it accurately, that the width of the seam will be all the same. So all the paper width is the same, but what I want to make sure is that my bottom edges line up. So again, we're going to revisit this little valley right here in between those 2 folds, and into that crease we will go. And I'm just going to pinch it nice and tightly with my fingers, get it on there. And again, if you're using white glue, it'll take a little bit more patience, but you got all the time in the world, so no need to worry. So here we are with our middle ground successfully installed. All right, so here we are. So as you can see, we've got 2 layers working right now with our accordion folds. And this one is, again, just glued right up to the very crease in that fold on the side, the accordion pieces, right? So now I think I'm gonna go ahead and add my next little character, which is my little starfish friend. Isn't he cute? Yeah. So I think he's gonna live in the middle ground. And again, he's kind of having a great spring break too, so that's cool. Just gonna dab a little bit of glue. And I could go nuts with this project if I wanted to and create all sorts of other things. We could have fish, we could have octopus, we could have seashells, like all manner of things. So again, it's only limited by your imagination.
Or mermaid.
I'm gonna stick this little guy right here. So he is also hanging out with my crab friend. And that is about to be it for the middle ground. So moving on, and this is actually going to be the last step of this wonderful, fun little project. We are going to attach the foreground to the whole apparatus, right? So once again, all of our paper has been cut to the same size. So we'll just kind of hold it up here and make sure that everything is lining up the way it should, right? So this foreground is gonna live right here. And what I'm gonna do, this will only need glue along the sides of the frame, right? No need, there's nothing for it to attach on either the front or either the top or the bottom. It'll just be attached on the sides. But what I'm gonna do is, I'm actually going to put the glue directly onto my accordion fold. So what we're doing is we're attaching that accordion fold to the very edge of the frame. So a nice liberal layer of glue stick glue going on this one on both sides. And here we go. All right, and then very carefully, and this is kind of an important part because this is kind of the finishing touch of the project, you really want to make sure that everything is lining up accurately. So I am going to start, I'm just going to do these one at a time, so no need to try to glue them both down on both sides at the same time. And I want to make sure that my edges are all synced up. And again, press down really firmly with my fingers to make sure we're sticking on there. And before my glue dries on the other side, I'm going to get over there and again, very carefully line up my edges. And we're just gluing onto the top fold of the accordion. Easy peasy. And without further ado, here we have our tunnel book. All right, so pretty exciting, super simple use of materials. There's not a lot that you need to do this thing, but again, the limits are absolutely endless as far as what you can do. You could use collage from magazines and other pictures and things that you might have around the house. You could make a family portrait where everybody's standing in a different place. It's totally up to you. I hope that you've enjoyed this project. I hope you have fun with it. And I hope that you'll continue to run with it and have a great day. So I hope everybody takes care and stay happy and healthy and positive. And we will see you soon. Thank you so much.